Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I've got a real pleasure tonight to introduce you to Rachel Luke, who is a teacher at the Glen Forest Secondary School in Peel, and she is the winner of the Prime Minister's Teacher Award of Excellence. Congratulations, Rachel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, what an incredible honor! That's wonderful.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
What do you teach?
I teach dramatic arts. I teach English and ESL, English as a second language. And I've been teaching for 18 years.
18 years, and always in Glen Forest?
Always at Glen Forest, yes.
And why do you think you won?
So one of my colleagues nominated me. I'm so grateful and thankful to her for taking the time to do that. I'm very actively involved in the classroom and beyond the classroom in a lot of different initiatives. So some of the things that were highlighted from the award were I've been doing a lot of work with anti-Black racism, trying to dismantle anti-Black racism, bringing in culturally responsive texts into my classroom. I do a lot of work with Holocaust education. So I take students to meet with Holocaust survivors. I bring Holocaust survivors into the school. I've also met a residential school survivor, and he has written an autobiography and has given me permission to change it into a play, to adapt it into a play. So I've been working on that. And there have been several other initiatives that I've been involved in taking students to earn their 40 hours with the Raptors 905 team. So there's quite a few things that were highlighted.
Those are some pretty big issues: anti-Black racism, Holocaust survivors, and Indigenous issues, and residents of schools. Those are some pretty big issues.
They are. And I think issues that the students need to be made aware of.
How do they respond?
Excellent. I've always had very, very positive feedback from the students. They're very interested in learning. When I bring Holocaust survivors in, the kinds of conversations that I bring it in, we have an auditorium for 650 students. So the survivor speaks to 650 students. And then, a lot of times the students will write letters to the survivors, or they'll go back to their classrooms and have very deep and rich conversations. And they find it fascinating. A lot of them don't know what the Holocaust was. So it's new learning for them. They're always blown away by the testimony. And I think a lot of them, after meeting residential school survivors, Holocaust survivors, they feel the call to action, and they feel empowered to create change.
So you're not doing this in English or in dramatic arts, but you're doing this in the school generally. Is that correct?
Both. So I do it in my own classroom. So in my English classroom and drama classrooms, I have actually brought those topics in as well. And in drama class, we explore things like theater of the oppressed, where students do monologues and they explore, groups that are oppressed in our society. But I also take it into the school as in general. So
what is theater of the oppressed?
So Theater of the Oppressed is a form of theater that was created by Augusto Boal, and it's looking at groups of people who have been oppressed in society, and exploring their narratives, exploring their stories, and helping students to delve deeper into oppression and why people are oppressed and how we can change things and make our world and society much more inclusive.
Your theater arts class, is it primarily white, primarily Black, mixed?
So our school is predominantly South Asian, Islamic South Asian students. And then I'd say our next largest population is East Asian. Then we have some whites from Europe as well as Canada. And then we have a smaller Black population in our school. So quite a mix, but predominantly South Asian. And the students are very receptive to this learning. And there's never any issues. I'm often asked when I teach Holocaust education if there's ever any backlash from, say, Islamic students, but that's never been an issue or a case at our school.
Sounds like you're actually really doing fantastic work and achieving, not just making people aware of diversity, but getting people to feel included. And so that's a wonderful effort that you're doing, and I appreciate that. And obviously the Prime Minister appreciated it, and that's why he gave you the award. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're chatting tonight um, with Rachel Luke, who is a teacher at the Glen Forest Secondary School in the Peel Board of Peel District School Board. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Rachel and why she won this award. And sounds like some fascinating things that she's doing with her class in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Rachel Luke. She's a teacher at the Glen Forest Secondary School, part of the Peel District School Board. And she won the Prime Minister's Teachers Award of Excellence this past year. It sounds like she's doing some incredibly great work in that regard. What are the criteria for the Teachers Award of Excellence? Can you tell us?
Sure. So for the Teacher Award of Excellence, they're looking for teachers who are doing fantastic things in their classroom in terms of media, technology. They were looking for, innovation and creativity in the terms of the classroom, but also beyond the classroom. What other things are you doing to, build a safe, inclusive environment in your school? How are you reaching out to support students, particularly maybe marginalized students who aren't always feel a part of the school community? And they're really looking for teachers who go above and beyond and really are exceptional, and not just as teachers, as I said, in the classroom, but also beyond the classroom.
I was told that you decided to become a teacher after watching a movie. What was it? To Serve with Love?
I know. So that's kind of funny. So I actually became a Holocaust educator after watching a movie, but I knew in grade 2 that I was going to be a teacher because I had a fantastic grade 2 teacher named Marissa Puglia. And she was absolutely wonderful. I just admired her so much. And I knew in grade 2 at the age of 7 that I was going to be a teacher because of her influence.
And what was the movie that
So the movie that I
motivated you
watched,
to become a Holocaust teacher?
educator. So that was when I was 13. It was in grade 7. And my mom showed me the movie called The Hiding Place. And it's about Corrie ten Boom. And it was... For me, I didn't know what the Holocaust was before that. So that's when I first learned about the Holocaust. I was, of course, horrified. And after seeing that movie, I, first of all, in high school, continued to do a lot of work, bringing awareness about what the Holocaust was and just about oppression in general. And I actually won the Halton Peel Lodge B'nai B'rith Human Rights Award in my final year of high school. And then when I became a teacher, I decided this was something I really wanted to focus my efforts on as well, as to teach students about the Holocaust, teach students about oppression, teach students about the Indigenous peoples and what they've gone through, and about what Blacks as well have gone through in Canada and Canadian history, because I think these are things that a lot of students do not know about.
So you grew up in Peel as well?
I did, and I went to school in the Peel Board.
So you grew up in Peel. You're now teaching in the Peel Board. This past year, the provincial government took over the Peel Board of Education and put in a superintendent because they thought that there was institutional racism within the Peel Board. Is there institutional racism within the Board of Education in Peel?
There definitely is. Yes, there is definitely anti-Black racism. They came out with a 46-page report about anti-Black racism in our board. And I mean, I read the whole report and I could concur with everything that was written. A lot of I think for me, what was most disturbing in reading the report is that a lot of things that I read about as a teacher, I had seen as a student in Peel. And I had experienced often as a student in Peel in terms of anti-Black racism. So it's definitely there. I think efforts are being made. I think progress is being made in terms of dismantling anti-Black racism, but it's a huge issue, and it's systemic. So it's gonna take a lot of effort and action from everyone to create change.
I was frankly shocked when I read the report and then interviewed some people, because I would have thought, Peel has got to be one of the most diverse communities in the world, and our diversity is diverse. You take a look at Markham, and its diversity is concentrated in one ethnic group. You take look at a lot of other communities, and they're not nearly as diverse as our community is. But we have actually in Mississauga more Chinese in absolute numbers than there is in Markham. We have more people of South Asian background in Mississauga than there are in Brampton. So our diversity is very diverse, and over 57% of Mississauga has lived in Canada for less than 10 years. So if you can have such a diversity and such a sizable amount of the population that is diverse, why aren't we more accepting of each other?
That's a fantastic question. And I mean, one of the things that came out in the report, I think is telling, is that you have students, right? I forgot what the exact numbers are. I knew it a while ago, but it's coming to my mind. The number of students that are in Peel, it's the flip percentage in terms of the staff. So if you have the students are predominantly racialized, and the teachers are predominantly white. So whatever the percentages of students, the teachers are not reflecting the students in the classroom. And I don't think, I mean, of course, you need to have all kinds of teachers. You need to have all kinds of races, teaching. But when you have one group that is predominantly teachers in the classroom, and then the students are predominantly not of that race, I think you're going to run into some issues and some problems, right?
Why is that? Why have we done such a poor job in hiring people of other races?
That's a great question. One that we've been asking the board for years and years and years. Why are the teachers not reflecting the children sitting in front of them? Why are the guidance counselors not reflective of the children that need to go and get the support and the help that they need? And that's a fantastic question. We need to do better. Obviously, they're trying to make changes now. But I mean, I'm one of three Black teachers in my school, and I think we have one or two, maybe two East Asians and just a handful of South Asians. And that is problematic, right? Because kids, culturally, there's going to be things that, for me as a teacher, I may not understand if I'm not of that ethnicity, if I'm not of that culture. And it does make a difference, right? Kids need to see themselves reflected. They need to see themselves represented. I never had a Black teacher in school. I never had one.
Never, not once.
Never, not once. And I was almost always the only Black kid in the class.
Okay, but you've done well. You're a successful teacher, and you won the Prime Minister's Award. So clearly, whatever happened wasn't to a negative towards you. What was the key to your success that you were able to succeed?
I think it's the support, right? So I had two parents my parents were fantastic. They were extremely supportive. They understood the system, right? They understood the school board. I had aunts who were lawyers. I had aunts who were teachers. So they understood the system. And of course, I had my faith. I believe strongly in God. I had a church community. I was actively involved in my community. So I had a tremendous amount of support and help from people around me. And when I experienced struggles, I experienced hardships, there were people I could turn to that could help me through those situations and help me to navigate the system. Whereas I think that's not the case for a lot of other students.
Have you been subjected to racism?
Absolutely. Yes, I have.
How?
So, I really had not very positive experiences in middle school. I had a teacher pull my hair and call me ugly in grade 7. I had several experiences with students and with teachers that just weren't kind. And I often felt, to be very honest, I had some teachers that were absolutely wonderful. So I don't want to paint everyone with the same brush, but I often felt that I was a keener. I was always I was an overachiever. I was an overachiever, but I never felt, or I often did not feel, that my teachers supported that, and that my teachers sort of were rooting for me to be successful. I remember I was like the president of the student council in high school, and I was doing all amazing things. I did a play for the Sears Ontario Drama Festival. We went to the provincials. And I can just remember teachers saying things to me like, is there anything you can't do, Rachel? Or, like I remember at the night of this amazing accomplishment when we were at the regionals for the Sears Drama Festival, and being so excited. We just found out that we were going to be moving on to the provincials. And, a drama teacher saying to me, like, I just can't believe how far you've gotten. Like, I'm just really surprised. I'm really shocked that you've been able to.
And that shock and surprise was because you weren't white.
I don't know. I really don't know where that comment came from, but I sure felt that was the case. I don't know if I question if she would have said that if I was a white student.
So I had a member of the Board of Education, one of the trustees, and she said that too many teachers and too many guidance counselors discourage Blacks from progressing, that they actively encourage them to take general courses, non-academic courses, to take trades, etc. That if they have ambitions to become a teacher or a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, they discourage them. Is that true?
It is true. It is true. Several of my Black students have told me that this is the case, that they have been encouraged to go to college. A lot of our students that we get coming into our school have come from grade 8, and I'll say to them, why are you in applied? Why are you taking locally developed courses? When you take locally developed courses, you cannot go to college or university. You can only go to the work world or to a trade. So I asked them, why? Oh, my teacher told me that this was the route to go. Oh, my teacher told me my guidance counselor told me these are the courses to take. And I have a personal story about that, where my sister was told by her guidance counselor in high school that she should go to college, and we kept saying to her, you don't need to go to college. There's nothing against college. I don't have a problem with college. But, my sister was university material and she should have gone to university, and nothing we could say could change her mind that she should go to college. And she ended up going to college for 2 years. And finally, she had this one amazing professor that said to her, you know what, you really need to be in university. And so she was thankfully able to transfer to university, and her 2 years in college counted. So she actually ended up having to do 2 years in university. But I remember that. I remember this guidance counselor saying to her, now I really recommend that you go to college, not university. So
we have, people of numerous races on the Board of Education. We used to have, I'm not sure what the top position is, but I think a superintendent or something like that of the Board of Education that was Black. We have some Black teachers. Why do we still have this institutional racism today? Why does it continue? And more importantly, how do we change it?
How do we change it? That's a great question. So I think part of the problem is that, yes, now we do have a director who is Black, and we have in the past, but I think for a very long time, there haven't been people in positions of power who are reflecting a lot of, who are not racialized, right? So a lot of people in power have not been. So I'm not sure sometimes what the intentions have been. And teachers, I think people have good intentions, but if we're being honest, white supremacy benefits a large number of people. And so are you going to actively try to change that if you're benefiting from it? I question that. I question whether you're going to change a system that is benefiting you. So that would be my first question as to why it's been around for such a long time. Because it's not that people haven't been complaining. Complaints have been going on for years. Since I was a student in high school, there have been complaints about anti-Black racism. And how do we change it? Yeah, we need to get more people, racialized people in positions of power. We need to change people's thinking. We need teachers to understand we need them to understand what anti-Black racism is. We need them to understand what white supremacy is, and we need to help them to understand how to dismantle it.
Okay, so help me here. One of the interesting things that I think have happened since the incidents in Minneapolis back in the spring is that the words white supremacy is something that people are talking about more. Prior to that, you would have talked about racism or anti-Black racism, and so it was more sort of focused on the negative thoughts that one might have toward a certain race, but not the positive thoughts or exclusive thoughts one had to another race. So tell me, why are we now talking about, for the first time, I think, in a long time, white supremacy, and how does white supremacy differ from anti-Black racism?
Good question. So I think now we're talking about it because now we're acknowledging that what white supremacy is. So I think there's a bit of a problem, is that people don't quite understand what white supremacy is, right? They don't understand institutionalized racism. They don't understand how the things that are in place, like curriculum and all these other things that are in place, have a powerful impact, right? What are you bringing into the classroom to teach to students, right? What books are you using? What voices are we hearing? What voices are being oppressed or left out? That's all a part of white supremacy, right? It's not you're a racist bigot, right? what is happening in the school system, whose voices are heard. That's all a part of white supremacy. So I think number one, people didn't really understand what white supremacy was. And I think now we're talking about it and people are having a better understanding of what it is. And I'm sorry, I forgot your second question.
How do we solve it?
About how do we solve it? How do we solve this? Well, I think we have very candid conversations. We're very open about what white supremacy is, what anti-Black racism is. What opportunities are we given to Black students and to Black educators and to people who are trying to get into positions of power? I mean, I've spoken to a lot of Black colleagues who have said for years they've tried to become vice principals and move up, in terms of getting promotions, and they've been blocked and they've been stopped. That's all a part of white supremacy, right? So.
And you think that's because whites want to keep those positions for themselves, and so therefore it's an economic issue?
Could be, yeah, like very well could be. Yeah, I mean, I think what happened, I mean, there's been a lot of nepotism in school boards, where friends and family members and stuff are moving into these roles, and we're not quite sure how sometimes. Yeah, I think it's definitely if it benefits you, it might be easier to keep things in place and keep things the way they are.
Fascinating conversation tonight with Rachel Luke, who is a teacher in Peel School Board of Education, and she won just recently the Prime Minister Teachers Award of Excellence. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Second and 60. We're chatting tonight with Rachel Luke, who is a teacher at the Glenfor Secondary School in Peel, and she's a member of the Peel District School Board. And she just won the Prime Minister's Teachers Award of Excellence. And it sounds to me, based on our conversation so far, that number one, she's a deserving recipient of the Prime Minister's Award of Excellence. And number two, I wish I had you as a teacher for my theater arts program or my English class when I was going through school. Rachel, the statistics in the legal system, in the penal system, in the healthcare system even are bad. So I have been presented statistics on some of my prior shows that show that the percentage of Blacks within the penal system is 5 times the percentage that they have within the general population. That said, the percentage of Indigenous people in the penal system is more than 15 times their percentage in the regular population. So if we have in Canada a racial issue with Blacks, we have an even worse racial issue with Indigenous Aboriginal people. You're teaching that or bringing awareness to that. How do Black people deal with this issue of racism against Indigenous people? And how do you said you have a lot of South Asians and East Asian people. How do they deal with racial issues, whether they be Black or Indigenous? Tell me.
Good. So I think for Blacks, I think for me, and I know many of my colleagues and friends, we feel an affinity with Indigenous people. I think a lot of our struggles have been similar, as you said. I think in many ways worse for the Indigenous. So from what I've seen and my experiences, we reach out and we also try to, I think, help the Indigenous, spread awareness about what the Indigenous have gone through. In terms of the South Asians and Asian populations, I think they have become, it was very interesting. There was a webinar for South Asians put on by South Asian speakers and leaders, and they were talking about racism and how South Asians are sometimes racist towards Blacks. I don't know about Indigenous, but racist towards Blacks, and they're often known as model minorities because this is not everyone, but there's this idea that a lot of them will sometimes jump on the backs of Blacks and to achieve positions of power, and they're not always they don't really sort of show any kind of allyship sometimes with Blacks. So there's been a lot of discussion about that, and I know that the South Asian community, at least the communities that I'm aware of, are trying to change that and trying to have a better understanding of Blacks. One of the things that I've experienced is often when I have South Asian students and I have parent-teacher interviews, A lot of the South Asian fathers will often say to me, I'm so proud of you. Like, I'm just so proud of you. And I always find it a very interesting comment, that, you know, they feel to say to me. It's almost like, I'm proud of you that you've achieved it. I find initially at first when I have a meeting, it's kind of like they're not quite sure what to make of me and if I'm, you know, the right kind of teacher for their child. But then after, you know, they have to let me know that they're very proud of me. And I've always kind of wondered about that comment. What does that comment mean? Why do you feel the need to tell me that you're proud of me? And I wonder if you say that to my other colleagues.
But the reality is you have been successful. Isn't that not something to be proud of?
It is. However, they are, this is simply in a parent-teacher interview after talking to me for 10 minutes. They don't know my background. They don't know all the work that I'm doing. They don't know the award I've won. And it just every single year after an interview, it's yeah, I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you. I'm not sure what to make of that. I question sometimes what that comment means. I'm not sure.
Sounds like you've had a very supportive family life and church life, and that's helped you succeed in life.
Yes.
I interviewed a very successful Black Canadian entrepreneur who came from Jamaica, and he said, and frankly, a president of the Canadian Bar Association that was also from Jamaica. And both of them said something interesting. They said, we grew up in Jamaica, and in Jamaica, in school, you can be anything you want. You can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can achieve anything you want. But the problem was when you came to Canada, you were discouraged. You were led toward these general academic streams and also to the trades. And both of them almost suggested that a Black only education might be superior because they would have better role models. What do you think of
that? This is a very good question. I've often had this conversation when the Afrocentric school opened up in Toronto. There was a lot of discussion about it with staff and colleagues, and a lot of people said, you know, I think it's wrong because it's segregational. It's, you know, what are we trying to do? We're trying to integrate. But I'll tell you, I visited that school. I took a year off, and I visited the school, and I think it does make a difference when you're seeing people that look like you, when the curriculum is reflecting, you know, your story, your narrative, writers that look like you, stories that are reflective of you. So I do think there are benefits to that type of an education where you see people that look like you, where you see people that have, you know, an interest in you and want you to be successful. And I think that's the goal that we're trying to work towards in the public schools, is now having culturally responsive material. So the South Asian child and the Indigenous child and the Black child and the white child and the East, you know, Southeast Asian child that is sitting in front of my classroom is also seeing themselves reflected in the material that is being covered in the class.
But isn't it also extremely helpful for them not to only see themselves reflected in the teacher, but to see people like you reflected in the teacher, and or for a white person to see a South Asian person reflected in the teacher?
Yes. 100%. I absolutely agree with that. Yes, because
so is diversity to be included in society is to have everyone you know, diverse within both the establishment as well as the student population better, or is it better to be segregated into an Afrocentric education, an Asian, a South Asian centric education, a white, a male, a female? Are we better off split off into different streams, or are we better off to encourage diversity in everything?
I think if we can encourage diversity in a purposeful, authentic way, where we are hearing all voices, we are hearing all narratives, then I think it's okay if we're integrated and everyone is a part of the classroom structure. But I think that hasn't been happening. And I think that's why we've had the segregated schools. So if we can create a society and a school system in which everyone feels comfortable, everyone feels a part of that community, then I think, yes, it's fantastic. Let's go for integration. But I think the reason that we had the Afrocentric school and some of these other schools that are segregated is because that was not happening. And these kids were falling so far through the cracks and basically just being left behind and lost, that and people stepped forward and said, listen, we can't continue with this. We have to have segregated schools and segregated systems to help these students become successful and to achieve success.
How long have you been a teacher?
It's 18 years.
Oh, good long time.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like you've been dealing with these issues for 18 years or for a long period of time. Um, this past spring with what happened in Minneapolis and then what spread across, the United States, Canada, and frankly, the world in what started out to be protests, some people would have said ended up being riots. We probably were more exposed to race issues than we have been since maybe Martin Luther King. Maybe with virtual education, you can't answer this question, but do you think students' attitudes toward race issues changed because of all that?
I do. 100% I do. I had conversations with students. I had conversations in my classes. I had groups meet after class, and we had a lot of conversations. I think students really, and I think it was because we stopped. I think had we still been going and George Floyd death had occurred, and Breonna Taylor, I think if we had still been going to work and going to school and going at the pace that we were going, I think it wouldn't have had the same effect. It wouldn't have had the same impact, because stuff like this has been going on. Trayvon Martin, so many people. It's been going on and on and on. So I think because we had to stop, and because people were actually consuming from the news and seeing this all the time, I think it definitely changed, made people much more aware. And I definitely saw a change with my students in terms of them stepping back and saying, this is crazy. Like, I cannot believe what has been going on. I can't believe this is happening. We need to make a change. We need to make a difference. We need to speak out. And I think students were mobilizing and trying to find ways to take action.
I was really encouraged because when I took a look at the pictures, the media reports of a lot of the protests, I saw not just blacks in those protests, but people of all races. Now, it may have been primarily young people, but maybe that's good that the next generation are, if not colorblind, not seeing color as a problem or an issue, and are leading those protests. Do you think that the next generation is going to be different than the last generations?
I do. I definitely do. They are much more open-minded. They have been in classrooms with students that are and not everyone, but many have been in classrooms that are diverse. They are in classrooms where there are teachers teaching culturally responsive material. They are learning things that maybe some of the older generations didn't learn about. They have younger parents as well who might have different perspectives. So I do think we're going to see a lot of change with our younger generation. I think they're much more open. I think they see racism as wrong. They see oppression as wrong, most of them anyway. And I think they're going to be a change. They're going to make the change.
Yet at the same time, I'm hopeful too, but yet at the same time, and maybe unfair to apply it to Canada, but I think there are some similarities. You take a look at the US election, where you had a president that could not disavow white supremacist organizations in debate. And when asked by journalists, you certainly appeared to have a large segment of the US population that voted based on race and were very racist in their desire to not allow some people to vote and to restrict voting and to discourage voting. What is it? Is this just an older generation? Is it a more less educated populace? Is it a more rural populace? I hate to generalize, but and yet at the same time, here we are in Peel, the most diverse place in the world, and we still have the problem. So, I don't understand. What is it? Where does this racism come from?
Yeah, I think it's ideas. It's people's ideas. I think for some it comes from the home. For some it's their own ideologies. I think the other problem is that not only the thing with racism is that it affects everybody. So if you're in a school where the curriculum has predominantly been focused on one race, one narrative, one voice, that message not only goes out to your racialized students who feel that they're not a part of, it also goes out to all the non-racialized that say, oh, well, you know what, then we're better, or our narrative is valued over the others, which I think has a ripple effect. But yeah, the States to me is a whole other beast. I can't even speak about the United States. I do think we have some of the same here, but I think that people are a little bit more cautious about speaking out and being overtly racist in Canada than they are in the United States.
So I'm a white Christian, and tonight I've been invited to be a keynote speaker at a Muslim Christmas party, primarily from Pakistan, and you're the English theater arts teacher that is trying to teach people about racism and anti-Semitism and issues associated with Aboriginal. How would I best express the desire for appreciation of diversity and going beyond that inclusion?
Great. So I think what we have to help people understand is, and it really goes back to the golden rule. And this sounds a little bit simplistic, but honestly, how about we treat people the way we want to be treated, right? I say this to my Islamic students and my South Asian students, if they, say anything like, well, I don't really want to learn that or whatever. Well, what about your story, right? You want people to know your narrative. You want people to accept you. You want people to include you. You want to feel a part of, but you're unwilling to allow that for another group. Not okay. Right? We all have to be a part of this. We all have to be part of an inclusivity. We all have to be part of, let's get rid of the oppression. So that's how I go about teaching people. What is it we want for ourselves? Well, let's actually also share that with others and give that to others. And it's not okay to oppress. It's not okay to oppress. It's in any book, any Christian, the Bible, the Quran, this is what it teaches. And if
The
we
golden
can go
rule.
back to that, absolutely.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about forgiveness and love and caring and compassion, and people that try to twist that for their own good and say it's not about that, not true.
What a fascinating conversation that we're having tonight with Rachel Luke. She's a teacher with the Peel District School Board, secondary school. She just won the Prime Minister's Award for Teachers Excellence. Given this conversation, for sure, she's deserving of it. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio. We're having I think, a really interesting conversation with Rachel Luke, who is a teacher with the Peel Secondary School Board at, Glen Forest School?
Glen Forest. Mm-hmm.
Where is Glen Forest?
Glen Forest Secondary School is Burnhamthorpe and Fieldgate. So Mississauga West, close to Bloor Street. About 10 minutes from Square One.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And she just won a Prime Minister's Award for Excellence in Teaching. And we've been having I think, a really interesting conversation about anti-Black racism, about issues of educating people about the Holocaust, about racism against our Indigenous people. Maybe I could just ask you a little bit about a couple of issues that people have raised with me over the year as I've been interviewing a lot of different people on race relations. I had a Black hip hop artist who said one of the problems, and she was someone who was I think dealt with poorly by the educational system, spent some time in the penal system, found religion. The church got her into singing, and now she's a successful hip hop artist. She said that part of the problem was Blacks fault themselves because of celebration of gang culture. Do you agree with that at all?
Yeah, in some ways. I think that's a bit complex. It's a complex issue. I think that there is definitely a problem because sometimes there's a problem in the home. The children do not feel, do not get maybe the support that they need at home, and so gangs provide that. Gangs provide a family, and often young people will move into gang activity and join gangs because they feel that they're a part of a community, they're a part of a family, and it's deadly and it's dangerous. And but I think that's part of the reason why they do. Unfortunately, I think for many young people, for many Blacks, they don't trust the system. They've had a lot of issues that haven't been dealt with. I mean, there's 400 years of racism, right? 400 years of slavery, and these things are never addressed, right? Like nobody talks about these things. No one has conversations. No one's ever provided supports, to deal with a lot of the things that a lot of Blacks have experienced. And so I think those things just build up. And then there's a lack of confidence. There's a lack of trust. And unfortunately, that often has negative effects and it has negatively impacted the Black community.
You said that you have a lot of people from South Asia and East Asia, and a lot that are Muslim, and yet they're willing to talk about the Holocaust. Tell me about sort of religious issues in your school and how you address that.
So I don't think we have a lot of religious issues. I mean, our school, we're very accommodating. Our Muslim students have a prayer room. They have their Friday prayers. Once they tell you and they have permission from home that that's what they're going to do, we respect that. We respect all people and their faiths. I've never seen any issues to do with religion. Anytime I teach about the Holocaust to my Islamic students, I simply say, like, you know what, we're going to talk about your story. We're going to talk about other genocides, but we have to hear all voices. We have to hear all narratives. And so I think they're receptive to that, right? Because their story is told too, but you have to be willing to hear another story, not just share your own story. So my students have been very, very receptive. I mean, I directed the Diary of Anne Frank, and the Anne Frank Museum in Holland shipped an exhibit to us. And they sent someone to train the students. The majority of the students who were trained were Islamic South Asian students. And the Holocaust survivor that came to see the show said he loved the show, but for him, what was the most powerful was that the student guide that was taking him through the exhibit was a student wearing a hijab and a jalaba, and she was talking about the horrors of the Holocaust. And for him, that was so powerful, he almost cried, because it was so powerful for him that he saw that at the school. So
that's a very compelling story. Can I use that?
Yeah. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, please.
That was a very compelling story.
Oh, yes.
I'd like to repeat it if possible.
Please feel free. Please feel free.
You said something about teachers need to take ownership. What did you mean by teachers need to take ownership?
Yes. So I think that teachers need to take ownership in terms of understanding that we teach students, we teach the whole person. We don't just teach subjects. And this is especially true at the high school level. And I think too often teachers walk into a classroom and they say, my subject area is gym or my subject area is math, and that's what I need to teach. No. That's not all you're teaching. In the classroom, you are teaching the whole person. You're teaching character, you're teaching respect, you're teaching responsibility, you're teaching them how to become citizens of the world, not just a subject area. And I think that's responsibility. And I think teachers also need to take responsibility for themselves. How are you coming to the classroom? Are you analyzing your own biases and your own comfort or discomfort? To me, that's what it means to be a teacher, to be reflective, to be self-reflective, but also to realize your purpose is to help every child that walks into your door become a whole person that can be successful in this world and in their society.
That's a great message to teachers. What's your message to students, whether they be young Black female students that are wondering about whether they need to go to college or to a trade, or whether they can actually be like Rachel and be a successful teacher and win the Prime Minister's medal, or anyone else? What's your message to students? My message to students is you need to be the best that you can be, and you need to take responsibility and ownership for your learning. Do not let anyone put you down. You are responsible for you, and you can be and you can achieve success. And there are tools out there, there are resources out there that can help you to be the best that you can be. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with going into a trade or going to college or university, but you push yourself to be the best you can be. And if you're going to go to college and become a plumber or whatever it is, and you be the best plumber that there is. That's my message to students. Be the best you can be. Be the best you can be. Rachel Luke, thank you so much, because you clearly are being the best that you can be, and you're fantastic. Thank you very much. You're a very deserving winner of the Prime Minister's Award of Excellence for Teacher. Thank you for the job you're doing with the students in Peel, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM, or you can stream me online at saga960am.ca, or you can get all of my podcasts and video casts the next day on my website, briancrombie.com. Good night, everyone. Be the best you can be.